Minerals don't heal anything, but what they do is provide the energy necessary for your body to do what it naturally can do. If you are not replenishing minerals in your body actively, proactively, you are going to experience depletion, deficiency, chronic symptoms that are associated with that, and it's only going to get harder and harder over your lifespan.
Hello, and welcome to the Energy Flow podcast. I'm Kelly Kennedy, and I am here to discuss all things energy, fascia, lymphatics, oxygen, and water. Over my 26 years of being on this journey and 19 years in clinical practice, dealing with chronically ill, chronically pained, to the optimizing of health and to everything in between, we have learned throughout these years how to efficiently and effectively teach people how the body works, get them engaged in that system, help them understand how the universe works and how those two connect. And that's what this Energy Flow podcast is about. Whether you are new to us or you've been a longtime listener of over 4 years now, we are so happy and honored to share our heart's honest truth about what we know, what has worked for us, what's worked in the clinical practice, and what might be the key to your next step in your journey. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing this with all that it will resonate with. We look forward to each and every moment of our genuine connection. Thank you for listening. I am Kelly Kennedy, your esteemed host, and I am so honored to be here today with one of the great minds and hearts that I've been able to connect with over this last year. And as you know, I truly vet all the product and all the technology and all the information before I present it here. And Caroline Allen is definitely going to surprise and delight you as she did the first time we had an interaction. As you know, I love minerals. And as you know, I know that we're all depleted in minerals, that it's minerals, not vitamins, that it's liquid over pills and potions, and we're going to talk all about that. But first, I want to just give you an idea of who this woman is to understand that every single product and technology that we talk about here on Flow or here at the True Wellness Center, it's because we have tried it and we have tested it, and we know the people behind the product and we know their integrity. And Caroline, I would love for you to just explain a little bit about yourself and how you got here. And I'm going to just clean my screen while we do that, because as I'm looking at it, it's like a little blurry. So just you take over, and this is live TV, as they say, and I'm going to clean while you go.
Awesome. Kelly, thank you so much for having me. My story is people call me the mineral geek, and they call me that because I couldn't stop talking about how minerals changed my life, and specifically plant-based minerals. It started about 10 years ago. I was coming out of a corporate career, and I was in really ill health. I had flatlined adrenals for about 2 years. I had really bad inflammation in my gut, even after being gluten-free for over 7 years. I could never get over the elimination challenges and the bloating and different problems. I had really bad inflammation in my mouth with receding gums. This started when I had children, and I was never able to get over it. I had bone loss in my teeth, even soft dentin in my teeth. I also had sinus infections. I have had mold exposure in my life, and I could not get over the recurring sinus infections every season.
So far, I'm sure nobody can appreciate that. Wow. So you're working a standard job. You're totally inflamed. You have no idea what's going on. You got sinus issues. You've tried all the protocols. You've tried all the things. You've been told you're adrenally fatigued. Wow. And now it's affecting another symptom that is another specialist, a dentist you got to go to. And like, oh, here's this other thing we have to throw at you. Now you got this other compartmentalized part of your body. But
You can only imagine, yes, how many doctors I was going to, right?
how many specialists, right?
Specialists.
And what was your background in corporate America? It was healthcare, right? No. What was
No. I come from high tech world. I was a top gun project manager for hire.
So she's a project manager for hire. I love this part of her story. Nothing to do with healthcare.
Nothing.
But she was on the case of Project Caroline, and she had to figure it out because nobody she was going to could help her. So go. Then what happened?
Exactly. So at that time, I met my business partner, and he introduced me to these plant-based liquid minerals. And they're little cups of liquid, about half an ounce. One's kind of a golden color, one is a darker brown color. And they taste like water. And he's like, I think you should try these. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure. I was up for anything. I'm not a big supplement taker. I don't like to take pills regularly unless they make me feel better. I will not continue to do it, like many people. But I took these, and they were really easy to take. And interestingly, I found my body wanted them. When I woke up in the morning, I was like, "Ooh, I want my minerals."
And how did you meet him? Like, was this this is part of the story that's important. It's not like you were at some seminar or something, right?
No, I've never said this online, but we met on Match.com. If you can believe that. I mean, I have no idea. The universe works in mysterious ways, and it will use whatever channel is available. So that's how we met. And after a few weeks, we were just friends. And he suggested I try these because he heard that I was talking about some physical challenges I was having. And so I started taking them. And after 2 months, I went to my dentist. And I had to have my teeth cleaned, which is usually this ordeal, painful, really uncomfortable. And there was no pain, no sensitivity. And then when my dentist looked in my mouth to do the exam, she was like, "Oh my gosh, what's different? The pH in your mouth is different. The tissues are no longer red and inflamed." I had deep pockets in my gums of 5s and 6s. At that time, and I used a water pick. I used all the things that were supposed to keep your mouth healthy, and they weren't working. So she's like, I said, well, I think maybe it's these minerals I'm taking. That was the only thing that I changed, right? So then 4 months in, I went to my naturopath, and we did the adrenal test, a saliva test, and I went to look at the results with her, and she was surprised. She was like, "Oh my gosh, they're a third of the way up the chart." And I had worked with 4 different practitioners over 2 years trying to heal these adrenals. And the last time I had seen her, she had wanted me to take hydrocortisone because she's like, "We need to do a jump start here." And I was like, "I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it." And because I'd read a lot about that, not a good thing. And
did you felt like the energy shift at that point, or were you just...
Yes, I did. I was starting to really feel better. So over the space of 8 or 9 months, after that, I went through a season, no sinus infection, my elimination in my gut, like the bloating, my gut, the dysbiosis just started to disappear. I could eat, I could eliminate. Even when I traveled, the elimination was good. And I kept going to Dan, my business partner, and going, "What is the deal here? This is crazy. How can this be?" I mean, I had no idea I was mineral deficient.
He wasn't your business partner at the time, just for clarity reasons. He's your
Correct. He was not my business partner.
Friend that the universe connected you to through Match.com. The clue you got was, hey, minerals, and 8 or 9 months later, you're still continuing this friendship with them and noticing as you go to different practitioners, as well as how you feel, that all the clinical results are showing up. Oh, wow, blood labs are looking better. Assessments are looking better in the dental arena. And wow, I'm feeling better. Yes. And then Dan and said, okay, what the heck's going on? Because everything's clearing up, and all I've done different is take a brown liquid and a clear and a
almost clear. Yeah.
Almost clear, light brown liquid.
Yeah.
It tastes like water.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been to all these practitioners, nothing's changed. Now I'm taking some minerals, which is why we connected when we first met. I was like, yep, everybody's missing it. It's all about minerals. It's not about supplements. It's about minerals. So here we go. This is a perfect example of why.
And as a result of that, I started researching, and I'm not a scientist. I'm not a practitioner. I'm not, one of these clinical research kind of people, but I just went down the rabbit hole because I'm extremely curious. And I also believe that smart people ask a lot of stupid questions. So I just kept asking them. And I started reading scientific studies and all sorts of things to understand. First, I wanted to understand, well, why was I mineral depleted? How could that happen? And then I wanted to understand, well, why did these plant-based minerals replenish me? And then I learned about mineral replenishment, how minerals work in the body, all these different things. And I realized I kept going back to my business partner, Dan, and saying, did you know this? And he'd be like, yeah, isn't that amazing? And I kept having these aha moments, Kelly. And these aha moments became the thing that I'm most inspired to bring to people, because minerals is a very complex conversation, but I've worked really hard to help people understand kind of the kernels, those golden kernels that can truly empower them around their health. So many people are dealing with so many chronic, complex health symptoms. And what if at the root, and I'm not confusing this with some root cause protocol, I'm just saying at the foundation level, your cells cannot generate enough energy to do what your body normally can do, which is clear inflammation, detox, do all your biosynthesis processes, create digestive enzymes that digest your food, or not heal, but remove the inflammation. I say minerals don't heal anything, but what they do is provide the energy necessary for your body to do what it naturally can do. I know I'm speaking to the choir.
I love this because it is a distinction to be made. And for clarity's sake, so many of us take supplements, do protocols, do ask the body to do all these things when we take herbs, when we take orthomoleculars, when we take things that force the body to do something. Mm-hmm. Even homeopathics cause the body information, or give the body information rather than they have to do something. That's what Harry Massey and Nest Health is all based upon, is the understanding that, well, sometimes I need even less than that because I don't have enough energy, enough ATP, enough electrical energy to actually move that mechanism forward. Even now I have the information, or I have the substrate from that herb to elicit bile production, but that takes energy. And so energy, I will tell you, comes from sound and light and comes from me being in the flow state and all that. Yet before you get there, oftentimes you've been so depleted, which is what you figured out, right? Like that's what I find too. People are, and I so agree, minerals are complicated. Like if you want to learn something complicated, go look at the minerals and the cofactors of minerals and how they all relate and how they work on each other. Like, there's few things I've learned in 27 years, well, including my college degree from Cornell. There's few things I've learned in over 30 years that are as complex as the mineral correlations to each other and what they mean and how to interpret them but I do know this, because I'm not as smart as the innate intelligence that figures all that out of what we need and where to go. What I do know is it's been a coincidence, I've noticed, that ocean minerals and plant minerals are the same things found in our blood plasma, which is the majority of your lymphatic fluid, which you have 3 times more than you do blood. What a coincidence. So, sarcasm now over. Go ahead, Caroline, and if you could bounce off from there and explain on your journey, that would be fabulous. Because this is definitely something they've heard from me a little bit before.
One of the ways I like to frame minerals for people is if you took all of the water out of your body, you'd be a little pile of minerals and maybe some amino acids. Okay. And, we think about how do we build this body? Even a baby in the mother's belly, it's built by pulling the minerals out of her body. Okay. To build that fetus. And when a plant grows in the soil, the way that it creates all of its structure, whether it's a small little broccoli plant or a redwood tree, is by sucking the minerals out of the soil. Now, in nature, what happens is things grow and then they die ultimately and they decompose over time, and their minerals, that mineral structure ends up back in the soil. But as humans, what we've done for hundreds and hundreds of years, in some cases thousands of years, is we've cultivated. So we've grown plants in soil. We take the plants away from that soil and we eat them. And then those minerals don't get back into the soil. So the sad fact is that to get the same nutrition from an apple that my grandfather ate, I'd have to eat like 6 apples today. So that's how depleted. This has been an issue since the 1930s. And to exacerbate this issue so this means that our food supply, the plants that are grown in the soil today, don't get as many minerals, as they're less nutrient dense. So then when we eat them, we do not get enough minerals into our bodies. Okay. And to exacerbate this, now we're all drinking bottled and filtered water, as we need to be. But that water, and I talk to people all day, every day, and they're like, since I started drinking, I got an RO filter, a reverse osmosis filter, and now I feel like my nails are chipping, and they're starting to have signs of not just deficiency, but depletion. So, and this is really hitting kids.
Same with the distilled water, right? Like therapeutically, I understand why people recommend it, because they don't want to add back the toxicants that are in the water. So they strip it, right? That's what reverse osmosis does. That's what distilling does. It strips it from anything in it. So it's completely, essentially empty.
Right.
With the exception of hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. And so, yet, what you have found is they're not just depleted now, but they're actually,
well, they're not just deficient, they're actually they have deep depletions. And then the other piece that people don't really understand is, people have heard of what we call the macro minerals. Lots of people take electrolytes. Those are called the macro minerals. And then maybe, since the pandemic, we've heard about zinc, for your immune system. And then, some naturopaths, et cetera, say, oh, you need some chromium, or maybe you need some selenium, or maybe, there's some minerals that or calcium, right? There's minerals that people have heard of. But there's a whole bunch of minerals that are extremely important to all sorts of biosynthesis and energy generation processes inside your cells. And things like molybdenum, vanadium, boron, things do you take those?
Silver. Let's even say
silver.
There's nickel. There's naturally occurring nickel. There's naturally occurring gold. Everybody's got all the metals as a bad rap, but minerals and metals, it's tough to stick.
Yes. And that's a whole piece of the conversation that we can get into some in the second segment here. Because there's so much misunderstanding about minerals. So you first have to recognize that your body needs this, I call it the full spectrum. It's a whole bunch of minerals in different amounts. You need a lot of the macro minerals, the magnesiums, the potassiums, because your body uses a lot. But you also need smaller, really important amounts of things like silver and vanadium and molybdenum and selenium and on and on and on. We can name so many. So the next thing I did was start to look at, well, how does replenishment work? Like, how do these minerals get back into the body? And that was another huge aha that I had. And I'm not sure if you're ready to go into that yet.
Yeah, let's before we go into replenishment, and I want to talk about depletion, because I want to dive in a little bit about how do people get depleted? Okay, we know the soils are depleted. We know the water maybe isn't as fully rich with mineral source unless you're doing something to restructure and remineralize it. But I want to go further, because there's so many clients out there that are right now going, oh, but I am taking, look at all the supplements I'm taking. I have a list of supplements that I'm taking. Mm-hmm. And to speak to the macro four, sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium, those are the electrolytes that most people, I would gather as you. I mean, I've been talking about electrolytes as a lymph therapist for 20 years. In the last 4, I'm like, oh, even my brother's taking them now. Like, oh, he even knows. Like, and there are some brands out there that are better than others, sugar content and all that. But you can find that somewhere else. That's what I want to talk about, is how do people actually get depleted when they're still taking handfuls of stuff? And what did you learn, given you were just taking minerals, and how that relates to dysbiosis? Mm-hmm. Depletion, dysbiosis, minerals, and yet I'm still taking a handful of supplements. Go.
Well, there's several, so the food supply is depleted of minerals. Sure. You're drinking water that has very little minerals in it. If you're lucky, it has some. And we're also being exposed to glyphosate. And this is a really important aspect. Glyphosate exposure is ubiquitous. Everybody's being exposed. You cannot get away from it. And it does some specific things of chelating out molybdenum, iron, and copper from your system. These are really important for all sorts of biosynthesis and energy generation processes. So these 3 things are the biggest hit. And then you have the fact that so many people are dealing with gut issues. And so because minerals are really misunderstood, a lot of people, actually, let me step back. So think about your gut. And we think about our gut, and what we know now is that it's this incredible ecosystem. It's a microbiome. And it thrives the same way that a forest would thrive. If you think about a really healthy forest, and you've got enough light, and you've got enough water and air, and you've got minerals and nutrients in the soil because the plants are growing and they're dying and they're decomposing, and everything is doing really, really well. Now go and take a wheelbarrow of potassium and magnesium and whatever other salt and throw it on the forest floor somewhere. And what happens in that area? It doesn't thrive. And this is what I want people to understand, which was such a huge aha for me, is that this body is an ecosystem, and ecosystems do not thrive with large amounts of anything. Now, there's this big biohacking movement, and I appreciate people taking responsibility for their health and trying to affect things. But the challenge with minerals is when you're using things like that, you're actually constantly creating imbalance, and you're actually making more work for your body to do all the elimination of all this excess. Now, why do you think taking a large amount of magnesium makes you sleep or makes you eliminate? It's because you have too much and your body is going into an elimination cycle.
It's a force. Minerals.
So it's a Band-Aid.
Yeah, and they can force your body to make a behavior versus, I love that analogy of throwing salt in the middle of a forest, because, we all know what that's going to do, right? The air is going to be dry, it's going to be hard, it's going to be rigid, there's going to be lack of growth, and that's what we mean by lack of thrive. And
yes,
it said full spectrum. What I talk a lot about is light and sound heals the body. But as I say, you need really 4 things to have life. You need water as a vessel. You need minerals, light, and sound. And when you have water, light, minerals, and sound, you have life. Mm-hmm. And people ask me all the time when they put me on assessments in this world, in bio-loving, I like to call it, versus biohacking. I love it. Whether they put me on the AO scan or they put me on the iMate or the live blood or the CRT or the HRV, let alone if they do my blood labs. Everybody's like, wow, how come you have no leaky gut? And I eat dinner with you, Kelly, and I see you eat glyphosate. I am unwilling to say the word right, I think, because I don't.
That's great.
So, and they watch me eat butter and fats and gluten and meat and vegetables and all the things. I eat all the things. I'm a flexitarian. And how did I get there? I have been taking liquid ionic minerals, both plant and oceanic minerals, not for a decade, not for 2, for 3 decades. I started taking minerals in the liquid form, and that is the foundation of my healthcare, in addition to learning how to be in the flow state, which is to breath and to structure the water more and to have a higher quality of frequency demonstrated through heart rate variability. This is the key. And if you don't understand the distinction between types of minerals, we're going to dive into that in the second half. We're going to talk about how you discern between different fulvic humic acids and minerals and what that really means versus, I have my ionic minerals, and sourcing absolutely matters. 100% it matters. And that's where we can be a discernment for our own healthcare. But what this segment is about to really demonstrate for you is that minerals. Look at her story. I'm sure, Caroline, can you just off the top of your head, I'm not asking this, but how long have you been working with Beam Minerals now? Like that, how long ago was that you had this whole experience?
Well, I had the experience about 10 years ago, and Beam Mineral, our company's been in business for about 8 years. And I did get COVID. That's really the only illness that I've had in 8 years.
And how long did it take over COVID? Obviously you didn't go to the hospital. Obviously you didn't do the shot. Obviously. But how long did it take you to get over it?
Well, I actually did have long COVID. I had COVID, the first round of COVID. I got the first, and it was much more virulent. And I ended up with long COVID. That's a long story, actually, we don't have to go into.
But thank you for your honesty, because what I've always said is that with this type of medicine, you don't need to make up stories. The real story is what really happens. And it is awesome because you manage that, I can guarantee it, on your own with your community, and you overcame it, even long COVID. And it just brought your attention to something on the inside you probably hadn't been dealing with, which is what I've always said, because the body doesn't make mistakes. And thank goodness for COVID that it brought it up and out of you so you don't have to deal with it anymore. Right?
Absolutely. I actually believe that it rewired my whole system. So, I actually think, because I used to live off adrenals and I don't anymore. So, I don't. I live in a different way. So more like what you're talking about with the flow. What I aspire to. Yeah.
So can you name a couple stories of, since you've been working with a company for the last, 5 to 8 years, what have you heard from both practitioners and so forth, and when they start to incorporate these into protocols or clients as they start to put themselves on this?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the reason we have a practitioner program, and the reason that we have a practitioner program is because we got calls. So the first call I got was from a world-renowned heavy metal detox expert, and she called me and she wanted to talk to me, and I was like, uh-oh. But she said, I need to talk to you because your products are the only thing that I have been able to use to move the dial on mercury and lead toxicity in my patients, like substantially move the dial. She's like, tell me about your products. I want to know about them. So that was the first call. Then we started getting calls from nutrition practitioners in particular who said, we've gotten to the point where if someone's going to work with me, the first thing they do is take your minerals. That's the first thing. Because once we get them on the minerals, all of the other protocols, we move into detox, we move into all sorts of other changing their diet. They have enough energy to start exercising. I say, what if you don't have to turn over a new leaf? You just have to take minerals. And then you start, what we find is people opening the fridge, and instead of looking for the salty or the sugar, they're like making different choices. And they contact us. They're like, this is weird. I was at a party and I passed the cake on to someone else, that kind of thing. Because hungry cells crave sugar and salt. So we also work a lot with athletes, and lots of athletes experience depletion, constantly feeling depleted, having struggles with hydration, having struggles with cramping or fasciculations. It's like creepy crawlies, they call them. And they come to us and we're like, okay, you need to stop.
A lot of people notice it with chronic illness. They get these tremors. And I had a friend recently say, oh, I need to cut out caffeine. And I said, well, that's one, yes. And two, treat your scars so that the energy can flow throughout the body, because you can get all the minerals you want, but it's still not going to be conducted through the electrical panel known as your fascia if you have scars. And then, yes, build the bodies up with minerals, because what I know and what I'm sure, I have a feeling I know who that is, but I'm sure what she mentioned is the body won't let go of will not let go of metals until it has a sufficient amount of minerals, because it's running the body like a battery, because the body has to survive. Remember, the survival mechanism is sympathetic. It will run until it stops. The goal is, though, that we live in the parasympathetic, because we're smart enough to get our bodies out of that and recognize it or assess it and go, whoa, I'm in sympathetic overload. I'm living off of my adrenals because I'm living off of adrenaline versus shifting my gear into parasympathetic. And for a lot of people, it was COVID that made a big life-altering shift of like, whoa, what am I doing just in my lifestyle? Number one. But number two, what I've seen for 27 years is the minerals, that as we start to get clients on minerals, because it is the very outside of drainage, it is the very first thing we do on anybody that's ever worked with me, go look at your protocol sheet. It's minerals, 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 and in different forms. Yes, electrolytes and base minerals, both ionic and plant, because we need all of those as to give the substrate again, so the body can then have enough energy until the mitochondria is healed enough that it can then perform its own function, create the ATP, and allow the body to have the energy source that it needs. But metals will push minerals right out of their body. If you look at the periodic table, down in the right-hand side is where the heavy metals are. They're literally molecularly heavier than selenium and all the beautiful, iron's a little heavier than that, but regardless, they're up in the upper left-hand corner. Yes, left-hand corner, because they're a little lighter molecularly. So if you have metals, you have to have a lot of minerals to allow the body to hold on to them so that it will let the metal go. Otherwise, it's going to go, I got nothing to run this circuit, so I better hold on to the nasty mercury or the nasty tin or the nasty aluminum, because I got to run my battery somehow. Without a battery, I definitely am not going to survive. And it takes time and space for us to get enough of those minerals in the body to, like, what I call like over hydrate the body with minerals, so that it will finally be like, okay, I feel safe. I can let go of some of these metals. I know that minerals are coming down the pike. I've stored some of them in my tissues, which can be evidenced by hair mineral analysis and different ways you can test it. I actually stopped testing people's hair mineral analysis many years ago, because I'm like, I can just tell you right now, you don't have enough. And you're probably excreting mercury and aluminum. You probably have leaky gut, because I've been doing this a long time. So when we get you down the road and you want to get really precise, we'll do hair mineral analysis. In the meantime, you're minerally depleted.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, I went on a rant there for us.
I love that. I loved what you said. That was fantastic. And And this is the thing is that we start talking about this stuff and because I've talked to so many people about minerals, it can be a little daunting, if you're just, and you think about, well, all these minerals, what do I do? How am I going to get those? I mean, I spent a lot of time in the aisles at health food stores talking to people who are buying minerals, and they're looking in the bottle and they're like, oh, but someone said this is more bioavailable than this form. And they have like a cart and there's like 8 or 10 bottles of pills in there. And I'm like, well, how do you know do you know how those work together? Is this, how do you know what you need? And what I know is that most of us have the supplement graveyard at home, and it's that cupboard filled with those pills that you took for a while and you had to take, 2-3 times a day, or you had to, and now you add them up, you've got 6 pill bottles and you're supposed to take 2 of it. And now you've got this huge handful of pills every day that you take, and it feels funky in your stomach. And you don't necessarily feel the difference. And so it takes a huge commitment on someone's part to keep taking a handful of pills. And for practitioners, this is the hardest thing, is how do you get your people to actually get all of the minerals that they need, that full spectrum of minerals from pills and powders? It's really not possible. It's not sustainable for an individual to be trying to get their minerals, all the minerals your body needs, from pills and powders, just beyond the fact that it's not effective to take them that way.
And we'll end this segment here in just a minute, but I do want to mention again about this full spectrum thing that we talk about within our human form as divine beings. We can only see a certain spectrum of light. We can only see a certain spectrum of sound. And what I'm going to say about minerals, because I've done a lot of research, my husband has this whole background. His father was raised on the Seminole Indians. He had this jar that they used to heal people. The family would get a spoon of this jar of stuff. Nobody knew what the stuff was. It was just this dark brown liquid. When we did an essay on it at the University of Pennsylvania, sure enough, it was just minerals. And so
that's cool.
There's a spectrum, is what I'm going to say, of minerals we know nothing about the ocean. Nothing. Like 0.000% of nothing. We know about really the ocean. We know very little about the earth and the Gaia, in all honesty, and what it produces for us. We know we're solar powered. We know that as a living being. We know we have water. But I would really gauge that there's a spectrum of minerals, and there's an interaction of minerals that goes with light and sound that we've only just begun to understand as forces of nature that we are. And that our job is to bring nature into our bodies and let it do its job. Because I'm not a one-shot wonder, as you know. I'm not like, this one thing for everything. Yet minerals, and a broad spectrum of minerals, I know the body will take what it needs, let go of what it doesn't, and I don't have to be so smart. So on the second if this is the end for you and you're like, I get it, I'm ready to get my B minerals, there's a link, there's going to be a code for you so you get a discounted rate. And this is something that would you recommend this? I mean, not only for your humans in the house, but for the ones with 4 legs as well. And dosage is just dependent upon size and age, of course. But is there anybody you would say, they shouldn't take minerals? I know you're not a healthcare practitioner. We know this isn't medical advice, but from your experience in living a life and studying minerals, which is life, what is your opinion about that?
My opinion is that if you are not replenishing minerals in your body actively, proactively, you are going to experience depletion, deficiency, chronic symptoms that are associated with that, and it's only going to get harder and harder over your lifespan. And this is even for young kids. I mean, it's more important nowadays. When you and I were kids, we drank tap water, and it had certain contaminants, but also had a lot of minerals. Kids today drink bottled and filtered water. I'm telling you, they are really struggling. Their bodies are struggling around development and all of the mineral requirements.
Yeah. And minerals have a lot to do with your hormones. I mean, they have to do with everything because they are the basis of information, and then allowing mechanisms to happen because they're starting the signaling, which is instructing the cells what to do, which then instructs the organ how to function, right? But it all comes from, again, that fascia and that lymph, and the minerals being conducted through that electricity. So,
yes.
Thank you so much for your work and everything you do. And I know that a lot of people have been informed about beam minerals before, perhaps, but they didn't understand the depletion component. So we appreciate that. And on the next section, if you want to stick with us, make sure you get that membership, and you'll be able to really dive into why we discern between these different type of minerals, what's the difference between plant-based and others, and how you actually get the most out of your minerals, and maybe some things you can do at home without having to take beam minerals to help you replenish, because this is what we're about. Is there any other last words you'd like to say, Caroline, to the community?
No, thank you. Thank you for being part of this and your work, Kelly. Being a mineral evangelist is, I think, one of the key components of health. So thank you for doing that.
Well, I received that label. I love being a mineral evangelist. That is a lovely title. Thank you. And stick around if you're interested to go a little bit dive deeper into this rabbit hole of minerals with the mineral geek herself for the mineral fix here on The Flow. Well, champions of the Vibe Flow community, energy flowing through that body, thank you for sharing this time with us and getting through the entire episode today. I know time is what we're spending here as our currency on this planet as people, and it really does mean a lot that as we devote our time and energy into creating this content, that you stuck with us throughout it. So if you would like more on this particular subject from this expert and get that free gift, make sure to register for our Energy Flow Forum. And you too, with a very nominal price, can access all sorts of upgraded content and deeper dives into the very subjects that you love: energy, fascia, lymphatics, oxygen, and water. As you know, as always, on this show and any content that we create, it is for your own health purposes. This is not intended to be advice or medical diagnoses or professional advice. It's purely information that if it resonates with you and you apply it and you upgrade, we love to hear about it. What a great coincidence, and we're happy to be on that journey with you. If this doesn't resonate with you, and you know somebody it will, pass it along. And in the meantime, know that we truly are here to show you and explain to you and be with you through this lovely journey of life, and to share our experiences together and help each other upgrade, because that's how we're going to do this, together, collaborating, with love at the center. I'm Kelly Kennedy, and I am so grateful from my heart to yours to share this time, energy, and space with you.